Okay, 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 okay. I'm studying the Bible in Toronto. 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 Studying the Bible with Mike, Sam, Pat. These other YouTubers are just so trash. Hit the thumbs up if you wanna support. Go follow Mike as he follows the Lord. I'm studying the Bible in Toronto. 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 You better watch out, Mike's calling out the shields. If you're not free grace, you need to sit down and chill. We're not hyper grace, you know we keep it real. Eternally secure, you know that we're sealed. We don't back low, we're not workspace heretics. Mike's not in it for the money, trying to get a lick. They out here selling their souls for a couple clicks. Becoming Freemasons so they can't just get rich. I'm studying the Bible in Toronto. 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 Shout out to Mike, Sam, Pat. Check out his channel, Toronto Bible Study. Subscribe and like.
Chapter 17. Now the Philistines gathered together their armies to battle, and were gathered together at Shoko, which belongeth to Judah, and pitched between Shoko and Azekah in Ephes-dammim. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together and pitched by the valley of Elah, and set the battle in array against the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on a mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side, and there was a valley between them. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. And he had an helmet of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass. And he had greaves of brass upon his legs, and a target of brass between his shoulders. And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron. And one bearing a shield went before him. And he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel, and said unto them, Why are ye come out to set your battle in array? Am not I a Philistine, and ye servants to Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. If he be able to fight with me and to kill me, then will we be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then shall ye be our servants and serve us. And the Philistines said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together. When Saul and all Israel heard those words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now David was the son of that Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and he had 8 sons. And the man went among men for an old man in the days of Saul. And the 3 eldest sons of Jesse went and followed Saul to the battle. And the names of his 3 sons that went to the battle were Eliab, the firstborn, and next unto him Abinadab, and the third Shammah. And David was the youngest, and the 3 eldest followed Saul. But David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. And the Philistine drew near morning and evening, and presented himself 40 days. And Jesse said unto David his son, Take now for thy brethren an ephah of this parched corn, and these 10 loaves, and run to the camp to thy brethren, and carry these 10 cheeses unto the captain of their 1,000, and look how thy brethren fare, and take their pledge. Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. And David rose up early in the morning, and left the sheep with the keeper, and took and went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the trench, as the host was going forth to the fight, and shouted for the battle. For Israel and the Philistines had put the battle in array, army against army. And David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage, and ran into the army, and came and saluted his brethren. And as he talked with them, behold, there came up the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same words. And David heard them. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled before him, and were sore afraid. And the men of Israel said, Have ye seen this man that is come up? Surely to defy Israel is he come up. And it shall be that the man who killeth him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel. And David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, What shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, and taketh away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God? And the people answered him after this manner, saying, So shall it be done to the man that killeth him. And Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spake unto the men, and Eliab's anger was kindled against David. And he said, Why camest thou down hither? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know thy pride, and the naughtiness of thine heart, for thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle. And David said, What have I now done? Is there not a cause? And he turned from him toward another, and spake after the same manner. And the people answered him again after the former manner. And when the words were heard which David spake, they rehearsed them before Saul, and he sent for him. And David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine. And Saul said to David, Thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. And David said unto Saul, Thy servant kept his father's sheep. And there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him and smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard, and smote him and slew him. My servant slew both the lion and the bear. And this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God. David said moreover, The Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion, and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said unto David, Go, and the Lord be with thee. And Saul armed David with his armor, and he put an helmet of brass upon his head. Also he armed him with a coat of mail. And David girded his sword upon his armor, and he essayed to go, for he had not proved it. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off him. And he took his staff in his hand, and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook, and put them in a shepherd's bag which he had, even in a scrip. And his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. And the Philistine came on and drew near unto David, and the man that bare the shield went before him. And when the Philistine looked about, and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth, and ruddy, and of a fair countenance. And the Philistine said unto David, Am I a dog, that thou comest to me with staves? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine said to David, Come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air, and to the beasts of the field. Then said David to the Philistine, Thou comest to me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a shield. But I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. This day will the Lord deliver thee into mine hand, and I will smite thee, and take thine head from thee. And I will give the carcasses of the host of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air, and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. And all this assembly shall know that the Lord saveth not with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. And it came to pass, when the Philistine arose and came and drew nigh to meet David, that David hasted and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. And David put his hand in his bag, and took thence a stone, and slang it, and smote the Philistine in his forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell upon his face to the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and smote the Philistine and slew him. But there was no sword in the hand of David. Therefore David ran and stood upon the Philistine, and took his sword, and drew it out of the sheath thereof, and slew him, and cut off his head therewith. And when the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they fled. And the men of Israel and of Judah arose, and shouted, and pursued the Philistines, until thou come to the valley, and to the gates of Ekron. And the wounded of the Philistines fell down by the way to Shaaraim, even unto Gath, and unto Ekron. And the children of Israel returned from chasing after the Philistines, and they spoiled their tents. And David took the head of the Philistine, and brought it to Jerusalem. But he put his armor in his tent. And when Saul saw David go forth against the Philistine, he said unto Abner, the captain of the host, Abner, whose son is this youth? And Abner said, As thy soul liveth, O king, I cannot tell. And the king said, Inquire thou whose son the stripling is. And as David returned from the slaughter of the Philistine, Abner took him, and brought him before Saul with the head of the Philistine in his hand. And Saul said to him, Whose son art thou young man? And David answered, I am the son of thy servant Jesse the Bethlehemite. Chapter 12. Whoso loveth instruction loveth knowledge, but he that hateth reproof is brutish. A good man obtaineth favor of the Lord, but a man of wicked devices will he condemn. A man shall not be established by wickedness, but the root of the righteous shall not be moved. A virtuous woman is a crown to her husband, but she that maketh ashamed is as rottenness in his bones. The thoughts of the righteous are right, but the counsels of the wicked are deceit. The words of the wicked are to lie in wait for blood, but the mouth of the upright shall deliver them. The wicked are overthrown and are not, but the house of the righteous shall stand. A man shall be commended according to his wisdom, but he that is of a perverse heart shall be despised. He that is despised and hath a servant is better than he that honoureth himself and lacketh bread. A righteous man regardeth the life of his beast, but the tender mercies of the wicked are cruel. He that tilleth his land shall be satisfied with bread, but he that followeth vain persons is void of understanding. The wicked desireth the net of evil men, but the root of the righteous yieldeth fruit. The wicked is snared by the transgression of his lips, but the just shall come out of trouble. A man shall be satisfied with good by the fruit of his mouth, and the recompense of a man's hands shall be rendered unto him. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but he that hearkeneth unto counsel is wise. A fool's wrath is presently known, but a prudent man covereth shame. He that speaketh truth showeth forth righteousness, but a false witness deceit. There is that speaketh like the piercings of a sword, but the tongue of the wise is health. The lip of truth shall be established forever, but a lying tongue is but for a moment. Deceit is in the heart of them that imagine evil, but to the counselors of peace is joy. There shall no evil happen to the just, but the wicked shall be filled with mischief. Lying lips are abomination to the Lord, but they that deal truly are his delight. A prudent man concealeth knowledge, but the heart of fools proclaimeth foolishness. The hand of the diligent shall bear rule, but the slothful shall be unto tribute. Heaviness in the heart of man maketh it stoop, but a good word maketh it glad. The righteous is more excellent than his neighbor, but the way of the wicked seduceth them. The slothful man roasteth not that which he took in hunting, but the substance of a diligent man is precious. In the way of righteousness is life, and in the pathway thereof there is no death.
Hello, welcome to Toronto Bible Study. I'm your host, Mike Sampat, and today we're going to talk about the book of Job, one of the most amazing and beautiful books of the Bible. Although they're all pretty amazing, but this one's got a lot of important lessons. I think I'm gonna enjoy going through this. I hope you will too. And we do have another exposed video or exposed live going on at 9 p.m. today. Or if you want to join us, we're gonna look at the I don't know. I hope you guys could hear me during that when I was saying that. But anyway, we're gonna look at the book of we're gonna look at Jack Smack's latest video and react to that 9 p.m. on Toronto Bible Study. We only got one viewer. Oh no, that's okay. I'm okay. There's even no viewers. Hi, typical quest man. Cool you're doing Job today because a friend of mine reached out saying he's losing faith because of life's troubles. I told him Job had it worse than us and he didn't lose faith, so what should we? That's right. Although Job did kind of lose faith a little bit, right? So that's the thing. That's why, although you're right that your friend shouldn't lose faith, right? It's also true that when we do lose faith, it happens to us. It's part of our flesh. It's part of something that's going to happen to us. And when it does happen to us, it's not the end of the world. And God is not going to abandon you just because of that. He might chasten you over those beliefs as he chastened Job, right? But he won't forsake you. That's the thing we have to remember always. No matter how bad it gets, no matter how much you doubt God, he won't forsake you. All right. So anyway, let's see what we got for messages here. Oh, I was responding to this, by the way. What was just asking me about this? And then we got hello, hi, typical quest man. Hi, Nicholas. The book of Job. I read it a few months ago in the NKJV before I switched to the KJV. Oh, I'm glad you switched to the KJV, bro. That's good, man. Yeah. KJV is the perfect word of God. I do believe that. And I am willing to defend that in scholarly debates or anywhere. But anyway. So the book of Job, what is it all about? Okay. It's a fairly long book among the books of the Bible, and it's full of it's got a lot of deep thoughts, okay? But basically what we're seeing is this debate over God's justice. Is God just? And so what we see is that Job has this suffering. Even though he's a righteous man, he suffers horribly, right? And so the question is asked, why? If he was righteous, why is he suffering like this? And if he's righteous and he's suffering, does that mean that God is not just? And so the question is asked and asked again and asked again in a kind of cycle where Job will say his thing, and then one of his friends will come and say this thing, and then Job will respond to his friend, and then one of his other friends will reply back to that thing, and so he goes through that in these cycles, you know. And then this other guy comes along. It's three of Job's friends that are debating him over God's justice, right? And then one of his other friends comes along, and then he gives kind of a better explanation, or one that's more biblical, and then you have then Job and God have their kind of confrontation or encounter. Job has an encounter with God himself, and they talk, and I won't spoil the ending, but it's very interesting, the whole discussion. But it's almost like poetry, right? It's almost like Hebrew poetry, and we'll learn a bit about that as well as we go through this subject, as we go through this book. But the book is considered what we call wisdom literature. Okay, so it's not like a prophet. It's not like a prophetic book. It's not like a historical book exactly. It's more a book similar to like Proverbs or Psalms, where it's just the genre is literally about teaching us wisdom. Okay. And other books like that, actually, so a lot of people say the book of James from the New Testament is also kind of like wisdom literature. And Psalms, Proverbs, the Song of Solomon, Ecclesiastes, these are wisdom literature, okay? And Job is included among those. It's usually thought to have been written probably between the 4th or 7th centuries BC. That's what scholars think. We're not really sure. A lot of people also often say that it's like one of the first books of the Bible ever written and stuff, which seems a bit, I don't know if we could really conclude that, but it's probably written, I think it's probably written before the historical books and stuff, you know? So I don't really agree with this date of the 4th to 7th century BCE, because that's like around the time of like the Babylonian exile and those kind of things. So I think it was written much before that. I think it was written probably very early, and probably even like around the time of Genesis and stuff, you know, or even before that. Some people say it was written before Genesis, you know. And so I think that's a bit extreme, but it may be because Genesis is written probably by Moses, right? So, or after. So it's possible that Job was written before that. But anyway, Job doesn't really tell us in the book itself. We don't learn very much about the historical context of it or anything really, or even really like where they are. You know, we don't really know where they are. They're in the land of Uz. We don't really know what that is. And they seem to be, the people in the story seem to be Edomites, because one of the guys is a Temanite. That's like one of the Edomites' children. And so a lot of people have said Job and his friends are Edomites, but that's not clear either. So it's very kind of, I mean, the Temanite thing, probably he is an Edomite, but the other ones we're not really sure. Yeah. So a lot of people say this too, that it's written around the time of Judges or Ruth, which we don't know when they were written either, you know? Like, I mean, I would say Judges is probably clearly written after the Pentateuch, but we don't know when that was written either. And Ruth takes place during the time of the Judges. It takes place during that period. But when Ruth was written, also, we don't know. But the time period may be around that period as well. Excuse me. The time of the Judges or something like that. Because it sounds like it's a little bit early on, you know? It doesn't sound like, because the way they talk about, like, the way they talk about cities and things like that, the way some, well, actually, as we read it, I'll point to some clues that may indicate when it was written. Okay. So let's see. So the key themes of the story are like the problem of suffering, right? Why do humans have to suffer even if they do good, they still suffer? Why? Right? There's a major theme about having faith and trusting in God, you know? And there's this idea of God's justice again, like I was saying. This is discussion of, is God just? Or if he is just, why do good people suffer and stuff, right? And there's also, I mean, we can also talk about the limit of our human ability to grasp things like that, things like God's justice and stuff like that. That's an aspect of the book. But anyway, okay, so let's just get into this. Sorry, I'm talking too much. Okay. Oh, wait, I gotta say a prayer. Hang on. Heavenly Father, Almighty God, how excellent is thy name in all the earth, Father. All the earth is thine, and the heavens are thine. The work of thy fingers, they declare thy glory. Father, we're about to read this book of Job, Father, an interesting and amazing story of your justice and your glory. We just ask that you give us wisdom today as we study this book, and help us to understand what you're trying to teach us here, Father. Help us to grow in the grace and knowledge of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. On him be glory forever and ever. Amen. Okay, so now let's take a look at this. Right. Yeah, Nicholas was saying that. Yeah, that's you probably are onto something there, but it's not quite clear. Okay, so the book of Job, the land of Uz. You know, we don't actually even know where that is. You know, but there's some theories about it, of course, but it's not quite clear. So this is the kind of thing. I mean, it doesn't tell us when it was. What was he before Moses? Was he after Moses? Was he? You know what I mean? They don't indicate anything like that here. So that's why we don't really know. But anyway, I'm gonna keep reading. I'm just gonna read the whole. Oh wait. Maybe I'll just read the first section because this part is still in sections. So, okay. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared God and eschewed evil. And there were born unto him 7 sons and 3 daughters. His substance also was 7,000 sheep, and 3,000 camels, and 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 she-asses, and a very great household. So that this man was the greatest of all the men of the east. And his sons went and feasted in their houses, everyone his day, and sent and called for their 3 sisters to eat and to drink with them. And it was so that when the days of their feasting were gone about, that Job sent and sanctified them, and rose up early in the morning, and offered burnt sacrifices according to the number of them all. For Job said, "It may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." Thus did Job continually. Okay. So we see that. So what do we learn here? What do we learn in this section? Sorry, this computer is doing weird stuff again, as usual. I don't know why this computer is always doing this. Anyway, it's not as bad as it was, but anyway. Okay. So the land of Uz, we don't know exactly where it is, right? So maybe I can look that up. We can learn about it together. But as far as I know, I mean, it's been a while since I've actually looked into this book that much. But as far as I know, the land of Uz, they don't really have a solid knowledge of what it is. So here's a map. Maybe this is a Caesar. This has been identified as Edom. Remember I was saying that a lot of people think Job is an Edomite? So some people are saying the land of Uz is the kingdom of Edom. And then other people are saying, no, it's this place up here around Damascus, which is like where the language of Aramaic comes from. And it's also, this is like modern Syria. Okay. So that's the 2 major theories about where this place was. The name Uz is most often used to refer to Uz, son of probably think that it's from that place around Aramea, because it says Uz, son of Aram, is a name we read in the Bible. He's mentioned in Genesis and First Chronicles. So that's why people think of it as possibly Aramea. But I think of it as Edom because of the fact that, like I was saying to you, that his friends appear to be Edomites, right? Like one of his friends is named Eliphaz the Temanite. And Teman is one of the like descendants of Edom, of Esau. So that's why they think of him as an Edomite. Anyway. So he lived in the land of Uz. We don't know exactly where it is. His name is Job. The man was perfect and upright, and one that feared God and eschewed evil. Now, perfect and upright doesn't mean perfectly sinless, right? That's not what it means. But it means that he feared God and eschewed evil. That's what it means. I mean, like, this is what they call, I would say, this is what they call parallelism in Hebrew. So in Hebrew poetry and other literary conventions of Hebrew, they'll often repeat the same idea again with different words, and they call it parallelism. It's a very common feature of Hebrew literature. Okay, and this may be an example of this. Perfect and upright is the same as feared God and eschewed evil. So that's what it is to be perfect and upright. It doesn't mean sinlessly perfect. It means you feared God and eschewed evil. And I'll show you another example of somebody who was considered perfect in the Bible. In the book of Luke, chapter 1, we read about Zacharias and Elizabeth. These are the parents of John the Baptist. And this is before John is born, right? And they're just telling us about them. And they said they were both righteous before God, walking in all the commandments and ordinances of the Lord, blameless. Blameless. They're righteous before God, okay? Walking in all blameless. So what does he mean by this? I think what it means is that they are just keeping the law, but they're doing it with a humble heart. And when they do it to the best of their ability with a humble heart. God considers that to be walking in all the commandments of the Lord and ordinances of the Lord blameless. They're not sinlessly perfect. We know they're not perfectly following his commandments, right? We know that. But what he's saying is God understands that we can't perfectly follow the commandments. But when we do our best, as these two are doing, and when we do it with an honest heart, with a contrite heart, right? Then he considers that to be blameless, you know? Oh, my audio keeps cutting in and out. Sorry, man. I don't know why. It's like my computer just completely sucks. Or maybe I gotta work on it again. I gotta fix something. Oh, maybe there's a page with the map. Yeah, maybe that's why. Sounds like the things from the movie The Garage. Oh, what do you mean? When I was talking before? Sorry, you guys. Yeah, maybe it was that page. I don't know. Anyway, so I hope you could understand what I was saying. What I was saying is just that some people think Uz, the land of Uz, where Job is from. Some people think it's in Edom, which is in the south of Israel, where the people who are descended from Esau live. And some people think it's in Aram, or which is like modern day Syria. Okay? But anyway. So now back to Job. Okay, so he feared God and eschewed evil. This is basically what I'm arguing, that this is the same thing as perfect and upright. If you fear God and eschew evil, you are perfect and upright. All right? And there were born unto him 7 sons and 3 daughters. So he has 10 kids. His substance also was 7,000 sheep, 5,000. This is like he's got tons of money, you know? And a very great household, so that this man was the greatest of all the men of the East. So greatest, they mean richest, you know? And so he's rich, you know? And his sons went and feasted in their houses every one his day, and sent and called for their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. So each day the sons would have a feast in their houses, and they would call their sisters to drink with them, to eat and drink with them. And it was so that these their fasting were gone about, or their feasting were gone about. Job would, when they feast, they have a feast because they're rich kids and they're like loving life. And Job, when they have a feast, he sanctifies them and sacrifices for them, because just in case they may have sinned in their heart and cursed God, and he would do this continually. So this is the kind of, he's even doing righteous things for his kids so that they don't get in trouble. You know, that's the level of righteousness that he has. You know. But now this is a very interesting part of the story, and very famous as well, of course. But it's one of the few times the Bible doesn't actually talk about the devil that much, especially in the Old Testament. And so this is one of the few times we meet him. Many of these modern translations will say the Satan, rather than Satan as the King James has it here, because in the Hebrew it says Hasatan. Hasatan means the Satan, not like if you wanted to say Satan, they wouldn't say ha, because ha is the definite article, like the. So they would just say Satan, right? But they say Hasatan. So people read that and say that it probably means that the Satan means like adversary, basically, or opponent. You see at the bottom there, opponents. And so when they say that it's the Satan came to see the Lord, the people will say, oh, it's just because what it is that God has this kind of almost like a opposition, like an official opposition, kind of like in our parliament or like in Congress, how they have the opposition and the government, right? And then they debate stuff. So that's the way they think of Satan, according to that way of thinking about it, because it's the Satan. So it's the adversary, the opponent. So it's like he's like basically a good guy. He's one of God's servants, but just that he's the one that does this role of being like the devil's advocate kind of person. Yeah. But now I think the King James is correct to say Satan here because because yeah, the Satan, they don't mean the devil, they mean like this adversary thing. Yeah. I mean, I think it is Satan. Yeah, I think the King James correctly translates it because the thing is, at this time in the Bible, Satan hasn't been fully introduced yet. So in the Hebrew, they just wrote Hasatan because it's like this kind of progressive revelation thing. And in the Hebrews days, they didn't really understand the devil and all that stuff. It's more something that came out in the intertestamental period, the period between the Old Testament and the New. There's this gap of like 300 to 400 years where there's no prophets. And so in that period, that's when the idea of the devil and Satan became more developed in the Hebrew mind. And then by the time of Jesus in the New Testament, then they fill us in with a lot more details about Satan. But in those days, when they wrote this book, the Hebrews didn't know that much about it. So that's probably why they just wrote it like that, Hasatan. They didn't really understand who this character was. But if you're reading closely, Hasatan, the adversary, you should drive back to the serpent in Genesis 3. If you're reading closely this Bible, it's the first time you see any kind of opponent of God who actually speaks to him, or who has any kind of like that kind of ability to whatever. So if a careful reader should connect them, but very few Hebrews did. But anyway, I'm just going to read this. I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. And the Lord said unto Satan, Whence comest thou? And Satan answered to the Lord and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and an upright man, and one that feareth God and escheweth evil? And Satan answered the Lord and said, Doth Job fear God for naught? Hast thou not made a hedge about him, and about his house, and about all that he hath on every side? Thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land. But put forth thine hand now, and touch all that he hath, and he will curse thee to thy face. And the Lord said unto Satan, Behold, all that he hath is in thy power. Only upon himself put not forth thine hand. Sorry, my voice is getting killed. I think I've just been talking too much. I was talking last night, then I had a stream today, then I'm now doing this. Yeah, it's Satan correctly indicated here, correct. Behold, all that he hath is in thy power. Only upon himself put not forth thine hand. So Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord. So, I mean, I don't know what you guys think about this, but what appears to have happened here, if we're reading this from a kind of conventional or maybe a more classical view of this in terms of the Christian view of this passage, right? What happened here is the devil went to heaven, presented himself to God with the other angels, because people say that the sons of God are angels. Okay, we can talk about that. Hold on. But the conventional view would be that Satan went to heaven and he spoke to God with the other angels. And then Satan said, and then God brought up this story about Job, and Satan was like, it's because you made a hedge about him. That's the only reason. Of course he's gonna bless you. You bless him all the time. But if you take away all his wealth and all his things that you've given him, he'll curse you. He'll curse you. And then, interestingly, this is the part that people find kind of perplexing, right? But the Lord said, okay, go ahead. Everything he has is in your power. Only don't put your hand on him. Don't affect him in any way. And Satan says, okay. And he goes. So it's very difficult, right? Why do people think about this? Like, what is it? What is happening here? God just put this righteous man in Satan's hands just because of what? Because Satan said that he would curse God. Just because of that, God just did that. It's worth thinking about. But then I often think about it like, I mean, I don't really have a big problem with it because I always think like, for God, I mean, we think of our lives as these very important things, and we think of our material success or health or whatever as very important. But to God, it's like our life is over in a flash compared to his eternal life, right? And he's thinking of our eternal life too. He's not thinking of this flash in the pan life on this earth. So I think when he does stuff like this, he's just thinking like in his mind, it doesn't affect Job's spiritual life or anything like that. It doesn't affect the things that are important to God for Job. And the things that are important to God for Job are the things that are good for God to be considered important to Job, you know? So I think people go on about how our lives are, how these things are such a big deal, and God's so unjust for this, but I don't even have a problem with it. I've seen hints to the devil in Isaiah and Ezekiel. Like Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28. They have those things, and people have associated those with the devil, and I would agree that they're about the devil, but it's also about like the king of Tyre and the king of Babylon, right? So it's kind of like, it's what I would call it a typology of like Isaiah 14 is a typology of the devil. He's talking about the king of Babylon, but he's speaking about him as the type of the devil. And so when he says that those things about the king in Isaiah 14, he's talking about the devil. And we can learn about the devil from those things. Yeah. Like ultimately, of course, this is the thing too. Just like we read in Hebrews 12, right? Maybe that God is actually chastising Job because the thing about Job is that, as we see, like at first he's very righteous and loyal to God, but over time his faith starts to break down a little bit, and God has to kind of correct him. And it may be that that's what this whole episode was all about, you know. But we will, as we go through the book, we can consider these ideas and talk about them. Yeah? But remember this from Hebrews 12, okay? For whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth. If ye endure chastening, God deals with you as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? But if ye be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then are ye bastards and not sons. Furthermore, we have had fathers of our flesh which corrected us, and we gave them reverence. Shall we not much more rather be in subjection unto the Father of spirits and live? For they verily for a few days chastened us after their own pleasure, but he, God, chastened us for our profit, that we might be partakers of his holiness. Now, no chastening for the present seemeth to be joyous, but grievous. But nevertheless, afterward it yieldeth the peaceable fruit of righteousness unto them which are exercised thereby. So it may be that this is what Job is all about, for Job anyway. The Job needs that kind of chastening, you know? And yeah, you're right, absolutely, that God did bless Job in the end, even more than he was blessed before, right? So it's not as if, you know, he was treating Job in some negative way or anything. Perhaps to rebuke Satan as well, because yeah, exactly. That's the other lesson. That's the other thing. I think a lot of people miss that part, that he's actually teaching Satan a lesson in why God considers Job righteous. And God's not, like, because the devil is almost implying that God's wrong, right? When God says that Job is righteous. And of course, God is never wrong, right? Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing too, right? Like he's showing us, I mean, there's so many rich lessons in this book, but one of them is certainly that in all the evil that happens to you, in all the suffering you may go through in life, just remember God is in control and he has a plan for you. And his plan for you is very good. It's very, very good. It's a plan you want to be on. So don't worry about anything, no matter how bad it gets. God is with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. But okay, so that's what happened. So now Satan presented himself. Now a lot of people think the sons of God thing is not, they're not angels. So I mean, I don't know what you guys thought when you heard that, but the sort of standard interpretation has been that the sons of God are angels, and Satan has gone up to heaven to present himself before the Lord as the other angels do. Okay? Other people have argued that the sons of God are humans or something, and that Satan just came among the humans. I think that's a bit of a stretch. The Lord said unto Satan, Whence comest thou? And Satan answered the Lord, said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. See, the way Satan's talking to God here is actually disrespectful. And you may think, oh, what's disrespectful? But what they should do, like, you know, if you've ever read in other parts of the Bible, when they speak to like kings and stuff, right? They'll say, thy servant was going to and fro in the earth and walking up and down in it, you know? Thy servant was doing this, or thy handmaiden, you know? But he doesn't say that because he's just talking to God as if he's equal with God, you know? And the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Job? There is none like him in the earth, a perfect and an upright man, and one that feareth God and escheweth evil. So we see this parallelism again. And this is part of Hebrew poetry again, right? Where they repeat the same thing. And most poetry does have a lot of repetition in it, right? So this is part of the poetry. But he says there is none like Job in the earth, perfect and upright, feareth God and escheweth evil. Does Job fear God for naught? He's saying, okay, he doesn't fear you for nothing. You do bless him all the time, right? Hast thou not made a hedge about him and about his house, about all that he hath on every side? A hedge is like bushes, right? But it protects your garden. You build a hedge around your garden, and then animals won't just come in and just start trampling on it or eating it, right? Because they can't walk through the hedge. So thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land. So because you blessed him and given him substance, of course he's going to fear you. That's Satan's mentality, right? Like, okay, if you give this guy every blessing, of course he's going to say that you're an amazing God. But if you put forth your hand and touch all that he hath, he'll curse thee to thy face. And then God says this, behold, all that he hath is in thy power. All that he has. Only upon himself put forth not thine hand, but not forth thine hand. So seeing went forth from the presence of the Lord. Wow, man, my voice is really getting smoked here. You guys, can you tell? Can you hear it? Yeah, I think you got a good point. That's two good things to consider there. Typical press, man. Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna continue reading here. I'll just read to the end of the chapter. And there was a day when his sons and his daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And there came a messenger unto Job and said, the oxen were plowing, the asses feeding beside them, and the Sabaeans fell upon them and took them away. Yea, they have slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and I only am escaped alone to tell thee. While he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, fire of God is fallen from heaven and hath burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them. And I only am escaped alone to tell thee. While he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, the Chaldeans made out 3 bands and fell upon the camels and have carried them away, yea, and slain the servants with the edge of the sword. And I only am escaped alone to tell thee. While he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, thy sons and thy daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And behold, there came a great wind from the wilderness and smote the 4 corners of the house, and it fell upon the young men, and they are dead. And I only am escaped alone to tell thee. Then Job arose. So all these things happen, and then Job arose, right? But when they say arose, it's not just about the fact that he stood up. It's like he arose to do something. He arose like he's no longer sitting. The sitting position is like the resting, and you're not in action. When you arise now, you'll often see this kind of language in the Bible. Then Job arose. Now he's ready to do things. So he rose. He rent his mantle. That means his like thing that he was wearing on his upper part of his body here, ripped it, shaved his head, fell down upon the ground and worshipped and said, he worshipped. Naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Amen. In all this, Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. So let's talk about this part. So there's a day when his sons and daughters, so the days they always go to the eldest brother's house to drink, right? And eat and have a feast. And then, so the messengers are coming now. It's going to be 4 messengers, right? The oxen were plowing, the asses feeding beside them, and the Sabaeans fell on them. The Sabaeans are like these Canaanite people, I think. Hang on, let me see. Oh, they're like Arabians, sorry. Okay, so the Sabaeans are Arabians, right? And they fell on them and took them away. And they slew all the servants with the edge of the sword. And then also fire of God is fallen from heaven, burnt up the sheep and the servants, and consumed them. And I only am escaped alone to tell you. Is that like a lightning strike, or what is that? What do you think that is? The fire of God. While he was yet speaking, there came another one. Hey, blessings, brother. Your voice sounds fine. All right, thanks, bro. My voice sounds, it feels weird, but okay, if it sounds okay. Yeah, I know. Job's response is very beautiful and brave. Yeah, Job is a good study. Thanks. God bless. So the Chaldeans came. The Chaldeans, I should say, came, carried away the servants, or carried away the camels, slay the servants. And then even after all that, so he lost all his stuff, right? All his like wealth and stuff. And then even his sons and daughters, all dead. One moment, one everything. All he has 10. He has 10 kids. Okay, they're all dead in one day, and all his wealth and stuff taken away by these raiders. So he rises up, rent his mantle. That's like when they, when they rent their clothes or whatever they'll say. That's like the sign of grief, right? And they'll shave their head sometimes, or they'll throw dust on their head, stuff like that. But he fell on the ground and worshipped, and he said, "This is a good sentiment for us too. When we lose things that we value. Sometimes you might be like, why God, why have you done this? But then remember this too: the Lord gives, and the Lord takes away. But blessed be the Lord." Amen. But Job didn't sin or charge God foolishly, because he's a righteous man, right? Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course, yeah, that would be I think the typical response, right? The fire of God is similar to Elijah, or maybe Sodom and Gomorrah, or maybe even like the pillar of fire that descended in the Exodus. Maybe. I would say if I had to choose one, I would say Elijah of these three, or of these two choices you put here, Nicholas, and also the thing about the pillar of fire. I would say it's probably similar to the Elijah thing. When he called fire on the soldiers, or even when he called fire on those sacrifices for Baal. It's like the fire from the sky, and it consumes the things. So it's very much like the closest parallel, according to the language used here, is probably Elijah. But anyway, okay, so I'm going to read this chapter 2 now. I'll just read the first part where the devil's talking to God, okay? Again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord. And Satan came also among them to present himself before the Lord. And the Lord said unto Satan, From whence comest thou? Satan answered the Lord and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and an upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil? And still he holdeth fast his integrity, although thou movest me against him to destroy him without cause. And Satan answered the Lord and said, Skin for skin, yea, all that a man hath he will give for his life. But put forth thine hand now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse thee to thy face. And the Lord said unto Satan, Behold, he is in thine hand, but save his life. So went Satan forth from the presence of the Lord, and smote Job with sore boils from the sole of his foot unto his crown. And he took him a potsherd to scrape himself withal, and he sat down among the ashes. Then said his wife unto him, Dost thou still retain thine integrity? Curse God and die. But he said unto her, Thou speakest as one of the foolish women speaketh. What? Shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive evil? In all this, Job did not sin with his lips. Okay. So, just as we saw here, right? In all this, Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. Here again, we see this thing. In all of this, Job did not sin with his lips, right? So the sons of God came to present themselves. Satan also came among them. But whence comest thou? And again, Satan with this familiar way of speaking to God, which you're never supposed to do to a person of that much higher status than you. Like I was saying, like when you talk to a king or you talk to a lord or something like that, in those days, in that place, you say like that, thy servant did this, thy servant did that, thy handmaiden did this, did that. But he doesn't do that because he's being rude. God doesn't really care. He's being patient with him. Hast thou considered my servant Job? So we see this again, this parallelism, poetic repetition thing again, right? None like him in all the earth, perfect and upright. He fears God and eschews evil. Again, I would say fear God and eschews evil is basically repeating the idea that he's perfect and upright. And still you hold fast his integrity, although thou movest me against him to destroy him without cause. See, although thou movest me against him. Because you see what's happening here. Although Satan did those things, right? He couldn't do even one unless God had given him permission. So God is saying, although thou movest me against him. I don't know what you guys think about that. And Satan answered the Lord and said, skin for skin, yea, all that a man hath, he will give for his life. But put forth thine hand now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse thee to thy face. See, this is interesting because Satan's saying, like, he'll give these things for his life. Because he says, okay, yeah, Job can give up all that stuff because you still gave him his life and his health, right? But now God's saying, okay, you can take away his health. Or he's saying, like, okay, if I touch his bone and his flesh, and of course, so you never touched his health or his life. So because of that, he's still happy. Or he's still happy to bless you, God. But if you touch his bone and his flesh, then he'll curse. Behold, he is in thine hand, but save his life. So he went forth from the presence of the Lord and smote Job with sore boils from the sole of his foot unto his crown. So boils, obviously we know boils are painful and they're gross and they itch and it's just horrific, right? Having one on your body is bad. Having a bunch of them is horrible. Having them from the sole of your foot to the crown of your head is just horrific, you know? It's the worst thing you can imagine. It took him a potsherd to scrape himself. This is like, it's like a little scrap of pottery. So when the potters were making their pottery, sometimes they would break the pot or something would happen. And so when they have the shards, that's what they call this, the potsherd. The potsherd. And he used it to scrape himself. I guess that's to scratch it or something. I'm not really sure what that is. And he sat down among the ashes. This is like, when you sit down among the ashes, that means you're sitting down in shame and sadness. You're grieving. It's just kind of like also like when they sit down in sackcloth and ashes, you know, or they put ashes on their head or stuff like that, right? It's the same kind of thing. Which is also, you know how God says how the devil will crawl around in the belly on his dust in the dust on his belly. That's actually also a symbol of his shame, not so much as like literally like a Satan, like a serpent will go around on the ground, but it's like the idea that the devil has to crawl around in the dust is a shame on him, you know, in the ancient Near East. That's like dust and things like that is like a sign of shame, you know? Anyway. So his wife says this thing. Now, this is a very interesting line by his wife, and we've all heard it, or many of you have heard it, I'm sure. Dost thou still retain thine integrity? Curse God and die. So it seems like this woman thinks that this is what you're supposed to do when life deals you a bad hand. You're supposed to curse God and die. And of course, Job is much wiser than her in that respect. He said to her, thou speakest as one of the foolish women speaketh. But notice how he doesn't say, you're a fool. He doesn't say that to his wife, because that's a big deal back then. You don't do that to your wife, you know? So he says, you speak as if you're one of those foolish women. So, which is also very insulting, but he's not saying to her that she is a fool. That would be like beyond the pale. You don't say that to your wife. What? Shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive evil? In all this, Job did not sin with his lips. Okay, now let me read about it. Now, Job's friends come to visit him now. Okay, so this is a few lines here at the end of the chapter. Now, when Job's 3 friends heard of all this evil that was come upon him, they came every one from his own place. Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. For they had made an appointment together to come to mourn with him and to comfort him. And when they lifted up their eyes afar off and knew him not, they lifted up their voice and wept. And they rent every one his mantle and sprinkled dust upon their heads toward heaven. So they sat down with him upon the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and none spake a word unto him, for they saw that his grief was very great. So his 3 friends now. They heard about this stuff happening to him, so they came to visit. It's a very nice thing of them to do. They came each from their own place. Eliphaz the Temanite, like I was saying, Teman is one of the descendants of Esau, so it sounds like he's from Edom. Bildad the Shuhite. Shuhite means he's descended from this person, Shuha or something, right? But we don't know. There's a few people named like that in the OT. We don't know exactly who it is. And the Naamathite, I don't think we have that name. Let me see. There's Naaman, or Naaman, from First Kings, from Second Kings, Naaman. But I don't know who else has this kind of name. So Tubal-Cain's sister was Naamah, but Tubal-Cain and that family would have died out in the floods, so no. And then some of the sons of you know what? One of the sons of Benjamin was named Naaman, like Naaman, similar to the spelling of Naaman in Second Kings. So I don't know. I don't know who this person is, Naamathite, but we don't there's a few theories about it, but nobody really knows who these guys are, where these guys are from, or what they're all about. But they're his friends. Satan tempted God to do this, but God turned it to good. Yeah, exactly. That's what I think it is. But I think God probably already knew he was going to do all that, because he would have already known that Job is a righteous man, but he has this kind of weak spot in his faith where if things really bad happen to him, he would kind of not be as strong in the faith. So that's why God wanted to strengthen him, maybe. Because as James says, God cannot be tempted with evil, but God chose to do this for good. At least that's yeah, for sure. God's not tempted with evil at all. It was entirely for God's good purpose. Every single bad thing that happened to Job was for God's good purpose. And it will become good in the end, and everything will be fine. Because that's how God is. So that they made an appointment to come together to mourn with him and to comfort him. When they lifted up their eyes far off, this is a common phrase we see in Hebrew as well. They lifted up their eyes far off, and looked, and they knew him not. So what I'm thinking is, I don't think it's when they lifted their eyes and knew him not. I think what happens, they lifted their eyes, they didn't know him. They saw him, but they didn't know him. Then when they came closer, then they realized who it was. They're like, oh my God, that's Job. How could, look at him, look what he looks like, And then they start weeping. That's what I think happened. But you can think about that. And they rent everyone his mantle, sprinkled dust upon their heads toward heaven. See? These guys are doing the same kind of grieving ceremonial thing that Job is doing, but they're doing it in sympathy with him. Sat down on the ground with him 7 days and 7 nights. That's the number of completion, as they say in the Bible, right? 7 days. Just as God, he rested on the 7th day and stuff, and number 7 is big in Revelation and stuff. 7 is a big number in the Bible, right? So 7 days and 7 nights, it means that's the nights that it takes. That's the nights to complete their mourning, to perfectly complete it. And they didn't speak a word to him because of how great his grief was. If they didn't say anything, it'll make it worse. Just let him vent, Question for Job as well. Yeah, I think there is a question for Job as well, because just because he had that that doubt in his mind, and God would have sensed that God would have known. This is Satan said, right? Like Satan said that if you do this to Job, then he'll curse you. And of course, God knows that that's not true. But God also knows that if Satan did this to Job, that Job would have these doubts and he wouldn't understand. He might accuse God of injustice or something. And so God probably felt like Job could use this lesson, and also that we could use this lesson. So there's many reasons, of course, why God would do this. But okay, so they came and they're greeting with him 7 days, and then after the 7 days are over, now we see this. Job's cursed his day. Cursed his day means the day you were born, your birthday, the first birthday, the day you were actually born, right? After this, opened Job his mouth and cursed his day. Sorry, hang on. Wait. Okay. And cursed his day. And Job spake and said, let the day perish wherein I was born, and the night in which it was said, there is a man child conceived. Let that day be darkness. Let not God regard it from above, neither let the light shine upon it. Let darkness and the shadow of death stain it. Let a cloud dwell upon it. Let the blackness of the day terrify it. As for that night, let darkness seize upon it. Let it not be joined unto the days of the year. Let it not come into the number of the months. Lo, let that night be solitary. Let no joyful voice come therein. Let them curse it that curse the day, who are ready to raise up their mourning. Let the stars of the twilight thereof be dark. Let it look for light, but have none. Neither let it see the dawning of the day. Because it shut not the doors of my mother's womb, or hid sorrow from mine eyes. Why died I not from the womb? Why did I not give up the ghost when I came out of the belly? Why did the knees prevent me, or why the breast that I should suck? For now should I have lain still and been quiet. I should have slept, and then had I been at rest. With kings and counselors of the earth, which built desolate places for themselves, or with princes that had gold, who filled their houses with silver, or as in hidden and untimely birth I had not been, as infants which never saw light. There the wicked cease from troubling, and there the weary be at rest. There the prisoners rest together, they hear not the voice of the oppressor. Small and great are there, and the servant is free from his master. Wherefore is light given to him that is in misery, and life unto the bitter in soul, which long for death, but it cometh not, and dig for it more than for hid treasures, which rejoice exceedingly and are glad when they can find the grave. Why is light given to a man whose way is hid, and whom God hath hidden? For my sighing cometh before I eat, and my roarings are poured out like the waters. For the thing which I greatly feared is come upon me, and that which I was afraid of is come unto me. I was not in safety, neither had I rest, neither was I quiet, yet trouble came. Amen. Okay. So he's going to curse his day. This is also a big deal. Man, imagine saying, I cursed the day that I was born. Like, I wish I was never born. It's like basically what he's saying is, I wish I was never born. But he's also saying he's cursing the day he was born, right? It's even more than that, right? And then he says this, which again, we could call it a poem if you want. Let the day perish wherein I was born, and the nights in which it was said, there's a man child conceived. So that day that I was born, let it be gone. Let that day be darkness. Let not God regard it from above, neither let the light shine upon it. Just forget it. Let it be nothing. Let darkness and the shadow of death stain it. Let a cloud dwell upon it. Let the blackness of the day terrify it. This is an interesting line here, right? Let the blackness of the day terrify it. What's the blackness of the day? Is it an eclipse? Or is it when the shadows cover the sun? Oh, it's okay, typical crust, man. No, it's okay, brother. God bless you too. Yeah, thanks, man. As for that night, let darkness seize upon it. Let it not be joined unto the days of the year. Let it not come into the number of the months. So he's saying, don't even count this day in the calendar. Just let it out. Just forget it. Like, let it be gone. Let that night be solitary. Let no joyful voice come therein. Let them curse it that curse the day, who are ready to raise up their mourning. Let the stars of the twilight thereof be dark. Let it look for light, but have none. Neither let it see the dawning of the day. So there's even when this night is the night he was born, right? If it's even looking for light, let it look for light. Let it look for the light, but don't let it have any light. So let it continue to stumble around looking for it, but don't give it. And also don't let it see the dawning of the day. Because why? Because it shut not the doors of my mother's womb, nor hid sorrow from mine eyes. So yeah, you were born and now you have to face sorrow. Why died I not from the womb? Why did I not give up the ghost when I came out of the belly? I mean, I think we've all, I don't know, I've been here. I've been in this kind of place where I was so wrecked and sad and depressed that I was like, I wish I had never been born type of thing. But I think we should all see that. Yeah, so this thing about the night, where is it? Oh, the blackness of the day, right? The blackness of the day. That's what Nicholas is asking about. So yeah, so if I had only died when I was born, if only that had happened, then I would have lain still. Then I should have lain still and been quiet. I should have slept, and then I had been at rest. And then with the rest of death, right? Then you're there with the kings, counselors, even though he's just lying in the dust with boils covering his whole body and he's rubbing it with a potsherd, right? But he would be there right beside the kings and counselors because they're just dead too. Princes that had gold, that filled their houses with silver, is right beside the untimely birth, the hidden untimely birth, the one that's like born and dies and they hide him away. I had not been as infants which never saw light. There the wicked cease from troubling, and there the weary be at rest. There the prisoners rest together, they hear not the voice of the oppressor. Small and great are there, and the servant is free from his master. So the prisoners, they're resting together. Now they don't have to be in prison and stuck. Now they rest, but together, all of them are together. And they don't ever hear the voice of the oppressor anymore. The one who was keeping them in prison, they don't hear it anymore. Small and great are there. Whether you're small or great, whether you're a prince or a pauper, you're there together. The servant, the slave, no longer has the master to answer to. He's free. But why is the light given to him that is in misery? Life unto the bitter in soul. Why do you give us light when we're like, why does someone like Job have to have light and life when it's so bitter for them? It's so miserable for them. They long for death, but it comes not. They dig for it more than for hid treasure. They would dig for death. Job would would rather have death now than treasures. And people like him would rejoice exceedingly and are glad when they find a grave. Why is light given to a man whose way is hid, whom God has hedged in? With this hedged in, this is not the same kind of hedged in like the protection hedge in that Satan was talking about. This is more like hedged in, like you're being held captive, you know. But Job's sign comes before he eats, and roarings are poured out like water. Roarings like weepings, you know, like cryings, or like crying out, just screaming about your misery, you know. But the thing which I greatly feared has come upon me, and that which I was afraid of is come unto me. So yeah, I mean, this all his worst fears that have come, right? He lost all his wealth, and his kids are all dead. I was not in safety, neither had I rest, neither was I quiet, yet trouble came. So what do you think this is now? I was not in safety. I was not in safety, right? He was not. But so if you're not in safety, wouldn't you expect trouble to come? But then it says, yet trouble came, yet, as if it's like something you don't expect. Yeah, I've been there. Yeah. We've been there, but God turned it to good. Yeah, exactly. That's the same thing. Yeah, for me too. I've had like periods in my life of extreme depression and feeling like I lost everything. And then it turned out that no, actually God had a better plan for me, but I just had to have the patience to wait it out, you know? Yeah, I think you speak of the grave like the place where dead people go to rest until the resurrection. You know, he's not talking about. I mean, I think Job knows about the resurrection and he's saved, but I don't think he's talking about that. He's talking about where the dead people go until then. You know. Okay, so then now the first of his friends is going to answer Job now and give his kind of take on what Job just said. Because what Job just basically said is he wishes he was never born because life is too hard. Then Eliphaz the Temanite answered and said, if we essay to commune with thee, wilt thou be grieved? But who can withhold himself from speaking? Behold, thou hast instructed many, and thou hast strengthened the weak hands. Thy words have upholden him that was falling, and thou hast strengthened the feeble knees. But now it is come upon thee, and thou faintest. It toucheth thee, and thou art troubled. Sorry, I'm trying to find my Job commentary. Anyway, is not this thy fear, thy confidence, thy hope, and the uprightness of thy ways? Remember, I pray thee, whoever perished being innocent, or where were the righteous cut off? Even as I have seen, they that plow iniquity and sow wickedness reap the same. By the blast of God they perish, and by the breath of his nostrils are they consumed. The roaring of the lion and the voice of the fierce lion and the teeth of the young lions are broken. The old lion perisheth for lack of prey, and the stout lion's whelps are scattered abroad. Now a thing was secretly brought to me, and mine ear received a little thereof. In thoughts from the visions of the night, when deep sleep falleth on me, fear came upon me and trembling, which made all my bones to shake. Then a spirit passed before my face, the hair of my flesh stood up. It stood still, but I could not discern the form thereof. An image was before mine eyes, and there was silence, and I heard a voice saying, shall mortal man be more just than God? Shall a man be more pure than his maker? Behold, he put no trust in his servants, and his angels he charged with folly. Much less in them that dwell in houses of clay. His foundation is in the dust, which are crushed before the moth. They are destroyed from morning to evening. They perish forever without any regarding it. Does not their excellency which is in them go away? They die even without wisdom. So okay, what's he saying now? Eliphaz has a different take. So Eliphaz, he doesn't agree with Job. Job seems to be, I mean, Job's, I don't know what Job's saying. What Job is saying is this complete, utter despair and grief, right? And Eliphaz is saying, I don't know, I feel like Eliphaz's comments here are kind of insensitive, but anyway. Let's hear what he says. If we say to commune with thee, if we essay to commune with thee, that is, if we stop here to commune with you, wilt thou be grieved? Well, who can withhold himself from speaking? Because he's saying, you know, if we stay with you, will you be grieved? But we can't help but say stuff. You're saying this, well, I have to say this now because I'm your friend. And I feel like I have to correct you on this. And he's saying, look, you have instructed many, and you've given the weak hands, you've strengthened the weak hand. That is, people are poor, they come to Job, he'll give them a help. Yeah. That was the way it was back then when you're a rich person. And it's just expected, yeah. And he's instructed many, that's because he's a wise man, he's able to give people counsel and stuff, right? And his words were would uphold those that were falling and strengthen the feeble knees. But now when the grief comes on him, he helped all these people when they were down. But now when it comes on him, he faints, he's troubled. Is not this thy fear, thy confidence, thy hope, and the uprightness of thy ways? Remember, I pray thee, whoever perished being innocent. Or where were the righteous cut off? So now he's saying this. He's saying that you're being bad by acting this way. He's asking him, isn't this your fear, your confidence, your hope, and the uprightness of your way? Actually, well, what do you think about that? What do you guys think about it? Why is he asking him this? Is not this thy fear, thy confidence, thy hope, and the uprightness of thy ways? Sometimes I think I've seen this kind of reaction. Like Eliphaz has self-righteous indignation, felt the need to defend God. Yeah. He's like trying to say like it's your fault. You know, don't get depressed and blame God. It's like take responsibility or whatever, you know. Remember, I pray thee, whoever perished being innocent, or wherever the righteous cut off. So he's saying, this stuff happened to you. Well, it's probably because you're not innocent. I mean, that's what he's implying here, right? He's not saying it, but he's implying it. Even as I've seen they that plow iniquity and sow wickedness reap the same. So in his perception, right, the people who do evil, they receive evil in life. And so, but then the next logical thing is that he's saying that Job deserved whatever he got here, you know? By the blast of God they perish, and by the breath of his nostrils are they consumed. Which this is true. So what he's saying is true too, right? But it's also like not the full story, right? That's the thing. The roaring of the lion, the voice of the fierce lion, and the teeth of the young lions are broken. So this is like he's saying lions are like those people. They're like the wicked people. You know, you'll see that in like Psalms and stuff. Daniel or David will compare the his enemies to like these wild animals like lions and stuff. Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. So Nicholas has an interesting idea here about this thing. Is not this thy fear, thy confidence, thy hope, and the uprightness of thy ways? So what he's saying here is that when he was talking to Job about this stuff, Or actually, you know what, Nicholas? I think you might be right, but I think it's actually probably more related to this stuff. So what Eliphaz was talking about was how Job helps the poor and he helps people when they're down. And now when this thing comes on him, now he can't take it. But then when he says, "It's not this thy fear, thy confidence, thy hope, and the uprightness of thy way." So he's saying, like, if you comfort all these people and tell them to have strength, to have hope, don't give up, you tell them that. Why don't you tell yourself that? I think that's what he's getting at. Or I don't know. Maybe you're right though too. We'll reflect on that some more. We'll keep going here. Yeah, it's a lot of truth. Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of truth, and it's a lot of truth misapplied. That's the thing about it. It's true things, which but they're not reasoning about it in the correct way, so they come up with a bad conclusion. Yeah, so the lions. So yeah, David used to compare his enemies to the lions. So when he's talking about the lions here, he's talking about like wicked people and stuff like that. And well, or it's like the lion represents that kind of evil thing, you know? It's like in the wild, it can kill you, it can kill humans. It's like a dangerous thing. But then while they're strong and they're fierce and they have power, but eventually they get old and then the young lions kill them off or whatever, and they have to run away or whatever, you know. So their life sucks. That's what he's saying. And the stout lion's whelps are scattered abroad. They'll have like a strong lion. Will have all these kids, but then eventually he gets old, and then one of the younger ones takes him out, and then all his kids just get chased off because the lion doesn't want those kids around it. now the thing was secretly brought to me, and mine ear received a little thereof. Now he's kind of changing. He was talking about the way things are, right? Up until verse 11. And then verse 12 now he switches. He's telling a story. Now, whether it's an actual story or just like a kind of, I don't know, like a story he's telling that he made up to tell the thing, or what exactly this is, that's debatable as well, right? But we'll read it. Or I read it already, but now we'll talk about it. A thing was secretly brought to me, and mine ear received a little thereof. So he's going to receive a secret. And then in thought, but how did he get it? In thoughts and visions of the night, when deep sleep falleth on men. So it's a dream. He received the dream or a vision. Fear came upon me and trembling, which made all my bones to shake. And a spirit passed before my face. And the hair of my flesh stood up. The spirit stood still, but I could not discern the form thereof. So you can't really see what it is. An image was before my eyes. There was silence. And I heard a voice saying, excuse me. Sorry. So mortal man be more than just. More just than God. Shall a man be more pure than his maker? Behold, he put no trust in his servants, and his angels he charged with folly. How much less in them that dwell in houses of clay, whose foundation is in the dust, which are crushed before the moth. So the voice in his dream or whatever that is, right, is saying this. Thanks, Nick. Shall mortal man be more just than God? Shall a man be more pure than his maker? So it's asking the question. And the question is obviously no, right? The answer is no. It's a rhetorical question. Or these are two rhetorical questions. And it's also parallelism where they're repeating the same idea again in different words. And then when he says this, behold, he put no trust in his servants, and his angels he charged with folly. Who's he? That's God, I would say. Oh, this voice speaking to Eliphaz? Interesting. An evil spirit. Or maybe a dream. I don't know. But what is it evil about what this spirit is saying? Behold, he put no trust in his servants and his angels he charged to follow. So God does not put trust in his servants or his angels. Even his angels he charged to follow. So his own servants and his angels, they're also, none of them are perfect like him, right? So they all make mistakes. And so if he's going to not trust them and his own servants and his own angels, then how much is he going to trust us humans who are just like, we're just like the dust, right? We're just gone today, here today, gone tomorrow. They are destroyed from morning to even they perish with forever without any regarding it. Like, that's us. He's talking about us, right? How we die morning to evening, we die, and no one even cares. Does not their excellency which is in them go away? They die even without wisdom. So whatever excellency or whatever excellence you may achieve in life, it's all going to be gone when you die, right? And so that's the basic gist of what I think Eliphaz is getting at here. I think there are a few more suspect things, but you could be right. Maybe it's just a matter of trust. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I never really, this book, I find this book to be very perplexing, a lot of it. I don't really fully understand this book, I must say. I mean, I understand it, kind of the basic idea of it, but the intricacies of these things, like this conversation and stuff, it's quite deep. You know, you could spend a lot of time contemplating this book, you know. Yeah, I think. Oh, you saying the spirit is instigating him to harass Job. Interesting. Hmm. I was thinking he's like, okay, he's responding to Job's thing, right? And so first he talks about so Job's thing was, I wish I had never been born. Now Eliphaz is like, look, dude, don't talk like that. Come on, man. He says, look, if we commune with you, we come here to sit with you, agree with you. So we don't want to grieve you, but at the same time, how can I stop myself from speaking after you said that? How can I stop myself from saying this now? I have to say this. What you just said is wrong. Now I'm going to say this. And then he says this. He's talking about how, oh, you know, you help so many people. Now when this thing comes to you, now you have no strength. Why are you being like this? Is not this thy fear, thy confidence, thy hope? Right? Remember, I pray thee, whoever perish being innocent, or where were the righteous cut off? So, like, yeah, once again, I think he's implying that Job did something wrong here, right? And then he talks about how, yeah, the old people or the wicked are always punished. And then he tells this story. So he's finished telling Job, okay, first of all, I don't want to grieve you, but I have to say this. Then he says, look, this is how life is. You used to help people. Now you're depressed. Well, why are you being like this? Be strong. And then he starts talking about that thing, like only evil people get these things on them. So he seems to be implying that Job is somehow done something wrong. And then he tells this story. So I feel like he's telling a real story about something that happened to him, but a long time ago. Like, I think he's talking about something that kind of shaped his worldview and gave him this idea of how the world is, you know? And you realize, and what he's basically saying though is that look, life is kind of folly, life is vain, and this is what happens to humans. We're just imperfect vessels, and this is how life is for us, and there's nothing you can do about it, kind of thing. Or I don't know. Yeah, I think he's telling a story of something that happened in his past that shaped his worldview so that he sees the world this way now. And that's why he's telling Job this story. Huh? Let's keep reading, keep thinking about it, and we'll keep thinking about it. We'll keep, like I say, I don't have this like really advanced understanding of this book, so we could think about these things and we'll learn together, right? Now, I'll keep going though into chapter 5 now. This is Job is now gonna. Oh wait. Oh no, this is still he's still talking. Oh wow. Oh, Job doesn't answer until chapter 6. Sorry, my bad. Sorry, you guys. I should just read 4 and 5 together, maybe, but it's okay. So he finished telling him about the spirit, and now we move to this part. Okay. Call now. If there be any that will answer thee, and to which of the saints wilt thou turn? For wrath killeth the foolish man, and envy slayeth the silly one. I have seen the foolish taking roots, but suddenly I cursed his habitation. His children are far from safety, and they are crushed in the gate. Neither is there any to deliver them. Whose harvest the hungry eateth up, and taketh it, even out of the thorns, and the robber swalloweth up their substance. Although affliction cometh not forth of the dust, neither doth trouble spring out of the ground, yet man is born unto trouble as the sparks fly upward. I would seek unto God, and unto God would I commit my cause, which doeth great things and unsearchable, marvelous things without number, who giveth rain upon the earth and sendeth waters upon the fields, to set up on high those that be low, and that those which mourn may be exalted to safety. He disappointeth the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. He taketh the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the froward is carried headlong. They meet with darkness in the daytime, and grope in the noonday as in the night. But he saveth the poor from the sword, from their mouth, and from the hand of the mighty. So the poor hath hope, and iniquity stoppeth her mouth. Behold, happy is the man whom God correcteth, and therefore despise not thou the chastening of the Almighty. For he maketh sore and bindeth up, he woundeth, and his hands make whole. He shall deliver thee in 6 troubles, yea, in 7 there shall no evil touch thee. In famine he shall redeem thee from death, and in war from the power of the sword. Thou shalt be hid from the scourge of the tongue, neither shalt thou be afraid of destruction when it cometh. At destruction and famine thou shalt laugh, neither shalt thou be afraid of the beasts of the earth. For thou shalt be in league with the stones of the field, and the beasts of the field shall be at peace with thee. Thou shalt know that thy tabernacle shall be in peace, and thou shalt visit thy habitation, and shalt not sin. Thou shalt know also that thy seed shall be great, and thine offspring as the grass of the earth. Thou shalt come to thy grave in a full age, like as a shock of corn cometh in his season. Lo, this we have searched it, so it is. Hear it, and know thou it for thy good. Amen. Yeah, no, that's the thing. So, well, I think that's part of the lesson too. Is that it's that human folly is such that even when we'll make these mistakes. We're always making mistakes. We're always making errors. But because we are made in the image of God, because we have this like wisdom that is from him, even in our foolishness, we end up doing these or saying these things that are true, that are wise, but that are out of place in the context we were meant to be using it in. But in the context God uses it in, it is wise, it is true and just, you know. Sorry, I was replying to this comment by Nicholas, if you guys were wondering. Anyway, so call now. So, okay, he just finished talking about what the Spirit does, right? Spirit told them this stuff. I wonder if the Spirit's still talking here. Let's see. So, The Spirit said this, shall mortal man be more just than God? Shall a man be more pure than his maker? Behold, he put no trust in his servants, and his angels he charged with folly. So at what point do you think the Spirit stopped talking here? So shall mortal man be just than God? Shall a man be more pure than his maker? I think maybe the Spirit was talking until verse 21, and then Job, and then Eliphaz picks up again, starts talking in 5:1. But I'm not sure exactly. But we can consider that again. I will do some research on this tonight, and tomorrow when we meet again, I'll talk about it. So anyway, call now, if there be any that will answer thee, and to which of the saints wilt thou turn? So now this, I think, is Eliphaz talking to Job. It's no longer the Spirit talking to Eliphaz in the story. Now Eliphaz is talking to Job. Call now, if there be any that will answer thee, and to which of the saints wilt thou turn? For wrath killeth the foolish man, and envy slayeth the silly one. So he's saying, call now. Like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna call out. You're gonna try to ask the saints for help. What are you gonna do? Wrath kills the foolish man, envy slayeth the silly ones. So don't have these things. Don't be like this wrathful Job, and don't be envious. I've seen the foolish taking root, but suddenly I cursed his habitation. So when he sees the foolish people starting to get some stability, some wealth or whatever, then he cursed them. His children are far from safety, and they are crushed in the gate. Neither is there any to deliver them. So the children of the foolish man is they're doomed to disaster. That's what he's saying there. And their harvest, the hungry eateth up their harvest, taketh it out even out of the thorns, the robber swalloweth up their substance. Although affliction cometh not forth of the dust, neither does trouble spring out of the ground. So this is another one of those, what do you call that? Parallelism, where they repeat the same idea. Yet man is born unto trouble as the sparks fly upward. So affliction does not come from the dust, and trouble does not spring from the ground, but man is born into trouble as the sparks fly upward. I would seek unto God, and unto God would I commit my cause. Which doeth great things and unsearchable, marvelous things without number. He giveth rain upon the earth, and sendeth waters upon the fields. So he's talking about now. So I guess what he's saying here is man is born into trouble as the sparks fly upwards. So he finished saying this now. Trouble doesn't come out of the earth, but man always finds trouble, okay? He's born into trouble. The trouble isn't natural, but man is born into trouble. And then I would seek unto God, and unto God would I commit my cause. So now he's saying this as what he would do and what he thinks Job should do. And then he's talking about God does great things, unsearchable, marvelous things without number, giving rain upon the earth, sendeth waters upon the field, to set up on high those that be low, and those which mourn may be exalted to safety. He disappointed the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. So when people get too wise in their own eyes, the God will just disappoint them. Even though they have the skills and they have the craft and everything, he can just easily foil their plans, you know? He taketh the wise in their own craftiness. Where is that from in Paul? He taketh the wise in their own craftiness. Is that 1 Corinthians? Yeah, 1 Corinthians 3:19. Let me just show you that. This is a kind of famous one. For the wisdom of the world is foolishness with God. For it is written, He taketh the wise in their own craftiness. And again, the Lord knoweth the thoughts of the wise, that they are vain. Yeah, he's not sure either. So yeah, me and Nick are having this ongoing conversation. If you're not looking at the chat, but is this repetition for teaching? You think this is what I heard? Somebody interesting. Yeah, the convention the Hebrews have of parallelism where they repeat. It may be part of their teaching practice because repetition is certainly a good method for teaching. But it's also kind of like it's very often in their poetry, right? And their poetic writing. And what they don't do is they don't rhyme. They don't rhyme poetry the way we rhyme, but they do this parallelism thing. So what people think is that in the Hebrew ear, that the way we like it when a poem rhymes, the way we think that that's clever, we kind of think that that's beautiful. They had that aesthetic about parallelism. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? I don't know. So the way we rhyme words, we rhyme the sound at the end of the word, right? They rhyme ideas. They kind of repeat ideas. It's like a rhyme for them, you know? I think he's certainly quoting Job, and he's also drawing off it as well. Like he's drawing from that wisdom literature to show these people in first century Corinth about the wisdom of God, right? Remember we were saying Job is wisdom literature too, right? They meet with darkness in the daytime and grope in the noonday as in the night. Now, I remember where I saw this before, or I can't remember where I saw this before, but this is also in the New Testament. But he saveth the poor from the sword and from their mouth and from the hand of the mighty. So the poor hath hope, and iniquity stoppeth her mouth. So God is so the wise people, they try to be wise in their own eyes, and God takes them in their craftiness, right? But when it comes to the poor people, he saveth them from the sword and from their mouth and from the hand of the mighty. So the poor hath hope, and iniquity stoppeth her mouth. Behold, happy is the man whom God correcteth. Therefore, despise not thou the chastening of the Almighty. See this? This is what I was reading you from Hebrews 12. And this is not the only place in the Old Testament that this kind of sentiment appears, but I think it's one of the first. But so this thing that Eliphaz is saying this to Job is the same thing that the author of Hebrews says to us, you know? He maketh sore and bindeth up. He woundeth and his hands make whole. Now, where did we read this? We read this the other day, right? Where did we read that? Bindeth. I don't know. I'll find that. I'll find that too. Sorry, you guys. I can't remember all the stuff we read. Yep, I know some cultures have different ways of writing a style, like in the Book of Daniel. Yeah, and there's very different ideas about aesthetics, right? Although I do believe like aesthetics are basically objective. You can see how culture shifts it. Chasing is correct. Yeah, that's right. You're right. That's in Proverbs as well. Thank you. So yeah, it's a wisdom literature, right? It's the idea of, that's why Job has so much in common with those books, right? Because it's also wisdom literature. But anyway, for making sorry bindeth up, he woundeth, and his hands make whole. He shall deliver thee in 6 troubles, yea, in 7 there shall no evil touch thee. So he's saying not only will he deliver you out of the 6th trouble, but even the 7th, the completion, the number of completion. Like he'll always, is what he's saying is that he'll always protect you. He'll never let you He'll never let you go down. In famine he shall redeem thee from death, and in war from the power of the sword. Thou shalt be hid from the scourge of the tongue, neither shalt thou be afraid of destruction when it cometh. At destruction and famine thou shalt laugh, neither shalt thou be afraid of the beasts of the earth. For thou shalt be in league with the stones of the field, and the beasts of the field shall be at peace with thee. Thou shalt know that thy tabernacle shall be in peace. Oh, wait, sorry. So you're saying this is about how when God is protecting you, when God is with you, then this is everything, all kinds of things might happen to you. He's not gonna like just make it so your life is perfect. You're still gonna have famine and destruction and suffering, but you'll laugh at it. And the beasts of the earth, you won't be afraid of them. Thou shalt be in league with the stones of the field, and the beasts of the field shall be at peace with thee. The stones and the beasts are like your friends now. Thou shalt know that thy tabernacle shall be in peace, and thou shalt visit thy habitation, and shalt not sin. Thy tabernacle is like your tent. It's like the place where you dwell, your dwelling place, right? They used to live in tents a lot of the time back then. Thou shalt know also that thy seed shall be great, and thine offspring as the grass of the earth. So this is a big thing in their value system. The idea of having your generations, your descendants living on and forming nations and being great was that's a source of honor for you. Thou shalt come to thy grave in a full age, like as a shock of corn cometh in its season. So when you die, you're like the shock of corn. It only comes off the thing and it starts to like the corn comes out when it's in its season, you know. It doesn't just do it early. Lo, this we have searched it, so it is. Hear it and know thou it for thy good. So this is his kind of wisdom that he's offering to Job, right? In response to Job's comment that he wishes he was never born, Eliphaz has given us this comment. And like I say, I feel like, I don't know, this book is very deep, like I say, right? So I feel like I have to do some reading about that thing we just read, because I don't really know enough about chapter 5 there. So anyway, we'll talk about it next time because I gotta go. But thanks so much for coming, you guys. I really appreciate all your comments and your help and your time and your prayers. And it's a wonderful gift of God that I can spend this time with you, my brothers and sisters, and study the Bible. And I hope it's a blessing to you as well. But I'm just going to say a quick prayer. And Heavenly Father, Almighty God, we will love you, Father, our rock, our strength. Lord, you are our rock, our fortress, our deliverer. You are the one in whom we trust, Father. You are our buckler and the horn of our salvation and our high tower. Father, thank you so much for this Bible study and for these brothers and sisters that come and study the word with me. I just ask that you bless them and give them wisdom, give them guidance, give them strength, give them encouragement, Father, as they go forward in this world of sin and death to shine the light of your glorious gospel onto the world, onto the people, the lost people of this world that need you so much, Father. And I just ask that you bless their journey and give them the wisdom they need to glorify you and glorify the name of your holy Son, Jesus Christ. On him be glory forever and ever. Amen. All right. So thanks, guys. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Nicholas. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Good. So thanks everyone for coming. And we're about to start another live in a few minutes, but I think I'm going to start it in about 10 after 9, okay? Please join us, and thanks for watching. Toronto Bible Study. Hallelujah.
Okay, 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 okay. I'm studying the Bible in Toronto. 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 Studying the Bible with Mike, Sam, Pat. These other YouTubers are just so trash. Hit the thumbs up if you want to support. Go follow Mike as he follows the Lord. I'm studying the Bible in Toronto. 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 You better watch out, Mike's calling out the shills. If you're not free grace, you need to sit down and chill. We're not hyper grace, you know we keep it real. Eternally secure, you know that we're sealed. We don't back low, we're not workspace heretics. Mike's not in it for the money, trying to get a lick. They out here selling their souls for a couple clicks. Becoming Freemasons so they can't just get rich. I'm studying the Bible in Toronto. 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 Shout out to Mike, Sam, Pat. Check out his channel, Toronto Bible Study. Subscribe and like.